ref. Actually got the ball. Good evening and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave, bringing you your Hotspur Social with Jonny, Sam, and Kate filling in for Jack tonight as Jack is off taking care of some family business. Hopefully you've all had a long weekend. Spurs, haven't been able to ruin it, so hope you've been out there making the most of it and enjoying it. And this evening we are going to talk about Kulusevski's injury. How much of a big blow is that for Tottenham towards the back end of the campaign, given how creative he has been for us? 10 goals and 10 assists across 42 appearances this season. We're also going to talk a little bit about Romero's call-up for Argentina. I know Sam has had a problem with this in the past. He's mentioned it here on these shows, so we're definitely going to have a little bit of a conversation around that. Now, it is fair to say Tottenham weren't blindsided. They were expecting it. They were in communication with Argentina. And then we're going to talk about the big game Thursday night, the Europa League, how important it is for Tottenham Hotspur and how important it is for Postecoglou's future. I've heard a lot of Spurs fans say he has to win it if he wants to keep his job for next season. So we're going to have plenty of discussions around that. And Romero, Van de Ven and Solanke also back in training. Would you start all three? I know when Romero and Van de Ven came back against Chelsea, it ended in disaster. So plenty to talk about tonight. Now, we're not going to waste time going around the houses. I'm going to welcome you in the chat as the conversation develops. We are going to hopefully keep this at an hour tonight. And someone gave out last week that it takes us too long to get into it. So we're going to try and improve. So we're just going to get straight into it. And we will start with you, Jonny, my man. I mean, look, let's start with the Kulusevski injury. I mean, it's bad news that we all got today. Tottenham Hotspur have been dealt a fresh injury blow with key forward Dejan Kulusevski set to spend a spell on the sidelines with a foot injury. He's undergoing tests to determine the extent of the issue, but seems certain to miss at least Thursday's Europa League clash against Alkmaar and the weekend's game against Bournemouth, and it remains to be seen whether he'll feature again before the international break, and we're expecting Postecoglou to confirm the extent of the injury tomorrow. Now, I know just on Twitter, Chris Cowland has put up a picture and said that Kulusevski is in a protective boot, so make of that what you will. But, Jonny, I mean, how big of a blow is Kulusevski's injury for Spurs, given his importance to the team? Like I said, he's played 42 games this season, 10 goals and 10 assists across all competitions.
Well, the news isn't Kulusevski, is it? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, is it a surprise? Is it really a surprise? I mean, if you're going to the games, even if you're not going to the games and you're watching on TV and you're an avid fan, like the people on this panel and a lot of you who are watching this or watching it later or listening or whatever you're doing, how many times have you had the conversation? Kulu needs a rest. Kulu needs a rest. He's not looking quite the same player he was, in the first 25, 30 games, I've said it. I've gone on about it. Him and Porro need a rest. What's going to happen? Have we got to wait till he gets injured before someone wakes up and smells the coffee? Mm-hmm. The answer is obviously yes. I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's self-inflicted, Dave, in my opinion.
That's what I was going to ask you, Jonny. Is it self-inflicted? Have we mismanaged these minutes? Because I've always argued, some of the games earlier on in the season, some of these big players could have missed in order to protect them coming out the back end of the season. But Kulusevski has also spoke about that he wants to play all the time. He lives his life right to make sure he's in condition to be able to play. So could it be down to Kulusevski demanding to play every week though, Jonny?
Listen, a boxer will keep on saying he's good enough to keep on fighting. And then we know what happens. They get to 35, 36 and it all starts to go. Listen, there comes a point where your brain is saying one thing and your body's saying something else. And, we could see as good as Kulu is, and we all know how good he is in the middle of the park, he was just missing a few things, that upper body strength that he's so good at and he's so famous for was just a little bit missing. He's still, that beautiful goal he scored against Ipswich, curling it into the corner there, beautiful shot. But did he need to still be on the pitch at 3-1? Right? My answer is no, he didn't. And I just think it's self-inflicted, and it's not the first time this has happened. Have we got to wait for Porro? I mean, I had an argument with some people the other day. Oh, you go on about Ange not rotating, and as soon as he rotates Spence for Porro, you've got an issue with it. Well, yeah, I do, because Spence has hardly played a game. and is absolutely on fire at the moment. And Porro has played more games than just about anyone and needs a rest. We do need another injury. For me, it's baffling. Is it a loss? Yes, because what he offers us is different to, well, on a physicality point of view. Obviously, Maddison can create, but he doesn't have the physicality on the flanks, nor does Brennan Johnson to hold the ball up. And thankfully, it looks like Dom Solanke is coming back. So we will have someone at least, because Tell can't hold the ball up, Sonny can't hold the ball up, and Brennan Johnson can't hold the ball up. Kulu can. So, if we're going to be missing one and we can replace him with Solanke, maybe the loss won't be as bad. But I would say the fact that he's on that boot, you're looking at 4 to 5 weeks, I reckon.
You think so? What do you think is the root cause of the injury? What do you think it is?
It's just accumulation, isn't it? It's an accumulation. It was going to happen. It was going to happen. I mean, last year we were moaning that, we only had 41 games. This year we're playing too many games. Come on. If you want to be successful, the last thing you should be complaining about is having too many games to play. The fact of the matter is, Dave, we all know, right? He didn't rotate at the beginning of the season, right? Said he couldn't rotate when he could, and now he can't. He's moaning about it, right? So I don't want to hear it.
No, look, fair enough. That's your stance on it. You people that's tuning in, please feel free to give us your opinions on it. On the Kulusevski injury. Is it sort of self-inflicted by Tottenham Hotspur? I mean, Kate, look, you've got Daniel Harris. He's come in here and what I will say is we have to convert him to Team Kulusevski here. He's Team Harris already, but we need to convert him to Team Kulusevski. But he says, big up Team Harris checking in. Don't think we'll miss Kulu for a couple of games. He's been poor lately.
Oof. Well, I mean, not many have shrouded themselves in glory of late, let's be fair. But I always think Kulu's someone who can change a game on a sixpence. He can literally just come on and make a difference, or any time during a game make a difference. He's been so strong. But I agree with what Jonny said. That upper body strength. He's not seamed himself. He looks absolutely knackered. Everyone can see he looks knackered, and it's culminated in him getting this injury. But look, what do? We've just got to get on with it like we have done all season. It is somewhat self-inflicted, in my opinion. I do think, like you said, Dave, he should have rotated a bit more at the start of the season. But look, we've got other midfielders there that are just going to have to step up. It's just as simple as that. The first teamers, sort of the senior players, have been the ones that have been letting us down this season, and they need to step up. Basuma's saying his contract's coming up for renewal. He's saying he wants guaranteed minutes. Well, we want guaranteed performances because you've been crap. It's as easy as that. So, it's as simple as that. If he's injured, he's got to rest. Then we've got to rely on someone else to come in and sort of take the baton and lead the midfield, because I think Kulu's a massive miss myself. I've become a real Team Kulu advocate this season because I think he's been immense.
No, look, I absolutely agree with you. I think Kulusevski has probably been one of our most important forward players. I don't think he gets enough recognition. You're looking at someone that can pick up that ball and travel, 15, 20 yards, if not further, with it straight up the pitch without needing help, without combination of passes, can just do that on his own. You're talking about a player that, when he's in that final third, he often draws 2 or 3 bodies into him, which creates space for the likes of your Brennan Johnson to run into, for him to play people into. And I think the biggest one for me is what Jonny alluded to, is that strength and that hold-up play. You look at Matisse Tell, you look at Son, you look at Johnson, you even bring in Maddison. None of that is their expertise, and you do need that across the forward line, as evident when we let Harry Kane go last year, how much Son struggled up there and how much we struggled to keep the ball up there in terms of holding up the play and getting us out. It kept on coming back one way, and I think Kulusevski is going to be a huge miss. But Kate, Paul Markey says here, he says Johnson can barely hold himself up. He's absolutely useless, and I think definitely agree with that. It's not one of Johnson's strengths. So do you think Postecoglou then has to find a different solution for us going forward? Because this season, like I spoke about, 42 games, 10 goals, 10 assists, and a lot of the ball does tend to go through him through that middle.
He does, but it's whether he can. There's been lots of times where we've said he needs to make adjustments because they've got injuries or because of this or because of that, and he's not particularly keen on doing that. I'm not sure how he's going to get round this one, to be perfectly honest. I don't think there's anyone particularly in the squad who is a like for like. And another example, again, of Daniel Levy and the board leaving us with a weakened squad and a not big enough squad where we can bring someone in who's as good or better. But he's got to. I mean, he's going to miss Kulu's strength massively and his ball carrying. And I'm not sure who he brings in to sort of do that role for this European game and possibly for however long he's going to be out. As Jonny said, with Solanke coming back, that's massive because I think we've missed him. To all the people that criticise him for not scoring enough goals, my God, he does so much more than that. And if you can't see what he brings to the team, then I don't think football's really for you, because this guy, for me, has been such a difference maker and we miss him so much. So, but I don't think Solanke's back for Thursday. So I'm not sure who he's gonna put in to take over where Kulu would have been. It'll be interesting to see. But, you know, Postecoglou gets paid the big bucks to sort this stuff out. So it's down to him to find that solution.
And just, no, look, I agree with you. I do think, you know, it will be a real test of Postecoglou because he has depended on Kulusevski heavily. Even when he's played in that midfield role, he's been combative. He's helped turn the ball over. He's helped on the press massively. So he's going to be absolutely hugely missed. And I do think it'll be a huge test of Postecoglou, you know, because right now you would argue we're very heavily reliant going down that left-hand side, putting it across for Johnson to get a tap in. You know, you're going to need someone like James Maddison to step up and take greater responsibility or find a way through James Maddison now. Or that right-hand side is going to have to come to the fore and start creating down that side. So I do think it's a huge test of Postecoglou now, because I actually think it makes the opposition manager's job easier. All he's got to do is say to them, look, block up that left-hand side. We have a huge chance of derailing Tottenham tonight. So he will have to come up with different solutions. Definitely agree with you there. I mean, before we get into, does anybody actually know, you know, the cause of the injury? Because I do think, you know, people want to know. There's a couple of comments about that. But Sam, Kulusevski did give an interview ahead of the Ipswich game saying that he was going into games at 40-50% fitness and that he was almost having to tailor his game because of the fatigue. And that probably alludes to why he hasn't had as much of an impact as he had maybe earlier on in the season. But surely that's warning signs. Surely we should have seen the signs coming and handled this situation a lot better, right? You know, surely, you know, if you're going to play someone 42 games already this season with still a third of the season to go, that eventually he's going to get an injury.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think one of the main things about Kulusevski this season that everyone's kind of, or at least Spurs fans have kind of sat up and took notice of, is the way that he's been talking about not only his performances, but about like the mentality and everything. And, you know, I myself have commended him a lot for some of the interviews we've seen where he's sort of showing the initiative to try and bring the leadership that is potentially lacking from the squad at the moment. So for him to be as honest as he was in that interview where he says, I'm only at 40-50, doesn't surprise me. Yes, it definitely should have been, you know, there should have been some more rest. You know, it's funny because like we sit here and you know, I'm not sure about Kate and I'm not sure about you, Dave, because you've been MIA for a little bit, so obviously it's good to have you back. But I know that Jonny is kind of on the same wavelength as me, where we're all kind of wondering why you would sort of bench Kulusevski, whether or not you believe he dropped him or not, or if he's just rotating, which I think is that is the right thing. Why he played him against Ipswich and not against Man City. And look, maybe he didn't play him against Man City because he was nursing some sort of knock and they were worried about it. He picked up something in the Ipswich game. Again, I don't know. I'm just speculating. And I also understand that, you know, Ipswich, maybe Ange was seeing the Man City game as a little bit more of a free hit. I don't necessarily agree with that. But the Ipswich game was more of a you know, a must-win game. The thing with Kulusevski is I kind of look at it. Obviously, I'm English. I'm an England fan, and during the Euros, a lot of fans were saying, "Why are they playing Harry Kane? You know, he's clearly not fully fit. He's not given the impact that we need in games." I personally think it was more down to Southgate, but that's a whole other can of worms. But I think we're seeing a very similar sort of thing with Kulusevski for us. He's clearly our talisman at the moment. But for the last I'd say at least a month, he's been very ineffective. And maybe that's sort of coincided with him having to be moved out to the right in Brennan's absence. And that's not me saying, oh, Brennan's, a must-start player for us. I'm just saying most of the good play he's had for us, Kulu, has been in the middle. And we've had to push him out to the wing. And as Jonny said at the start, Kulu's gameplay isn't revolving around pace. It's, the drop of a shoulder, the using his physicality to sort of muscle himself past the player. And, I think the one game that really stands out to me where Kulu might as well have not been playing was the Liverpool game where we lost 4-0 in the cup. Because it was like every time the ball came to him, and look, this is also, I don't necessarily think this is just a Kulu thing. It's teams know that Kulu is our danger man. So they just stuck, both the midfielders and the fullback on him every time he got the ball. And he was, mostly ineffective because he couldn't show that drop of the shoulder. And, maybe he should have been rested earlier on, but we are where we are now. In terms of the impact that the injury will have for us, obviously it's going to be massive. As I've said a few times, he has been, alongside Spence, he's been our best player this season. And maybe since Spence has come in, he's kind of taken up the mantle, in my opinion, of our highest performing player, because I feel like, as we've said, Kulu has just been so tired. In the immediate, I don't know if Kulu's loss will be as big as maybe everyone else thinks. I think that he really did need to be rested. As I said, he was sort of becoming ineffectual. He scored that goal against Ipswich, but he turned into a moments player in the last month or so, rather than someone who was dictating our style of play. And I think that, at least for myself, I was asking for Kulu to be, even if it wasn't necessarily benched for the start of the games, I was asking for him to be taken off, 60, 65 minutes, and it just wasn't coming. So I think in the immediate, it might not be the biggest problem for us. Obviously, it depends on how quick the other players come back, and not just come back, but start to actually get caught up to speed with the game. We've got the game on Thursday. It's going to be difficult. But it will be, if he's out for over a month, over a month, then we are going to really feel that, because as we all know, Maddison, as much as, he's clearly a special talent on his day, the inconsistencies in his game and, the rawness of Bergval's game, the ineffectiveness of Brennan Johnson to take his man on and do much outside of scoring goals. Not that scoring goals is not a massive thing. As they say, it's the hardest thing to do in football, and I won't take that away from him. But Kulu's impact in the team is definitely going to be felt going forward, as we, again with this. We've got a 3-game stretch of Thursday, Sunday, Thursday. That's going to be tough without him.
Can I just add, Sam, and to everyone who's listening, just say here that Kulu didn't start or play in the first game against AZ, a game which, considering how poor they were, we only managed to win 1-0 with a penalty. But the team that day was Big Frankie Foster in goal, Gray, Dragusin, Davis, Udogie, Bergval, Bentancur, James Maddison in the middle of the park. And up front, we had Timo Time, Richarlison and Mikey Moore. And Mikey had an unbelievable game in that second half. The bigger question that people should be asking is that the end of Mikey Moore in the team under Ange Postecoglou? Now, Timo's back and now others are fit. Maybe the fact that Kulu is injured might give an opportunity for Mikey Moore to make the bench, because I think there is an issue there with Mikey getting game time now. But we've done it before.
No, look, we should have enough to get past AZ Alkmaar without Kulusevski, but I do think like Sam was saying, over the context of, with the Europa League back and hoping to play every 3 games a week again, weekend, midweek, weekend, you are going to take effect there. And I do, someone said in the comments there, it didn't have to get to this point with Kulusevski, Maddison was available earlier on in the season and Postecoglou chose to keep him on the bench and continue with Kulusevski. Maybe he could have rotated them a bit more at times, but again, we don't know what was going on with Maddison. It's clear that there was some falling out at the time, and it looks like it's been resolved now. And then Steve also says, do you blame Postecoglou playing Kulusevski for as much as he did? I mean, look, he is our best player, and I think one thing we've learned is, when we were selling Harry Kane, many people were saying we were too reliant on him, over-reliant on him, he's stopping other people from stepping up. But I think, what's been proven with Kulusevski is a manager's always going to be reliant on his best player, on his most productive player, regardless of who you are. And he is going to play them. If he's in sticky situation, he's looking to win games, he's going to rely on him. He's going to play him. And Kulusevski is that sort of guy for Ange Postecoglou. So you can't really blame Ange Postecoglou too much in that regard. But I do think Postecoglou also needs to have the foresight of going, I'm going to depend on him in big moments come the end of the season. I am going to have to pick and choose my moments now, knowing how important he is to him, rather than just put him out there every week. Now, of course, we don't know what's caused this injury, but to be honest with you, I think with the amount of games that he's played, no one's surprised that it's actually come to this point, and we were all expecting something to happen at some point with the amount of games he's played. But look, Postecoglou will update us more tomorrow, so let's wait and find out. Now, Jonny, in terms of Mikey Moore, I mean, look, for me, Timo Werner, it's been reported over the weekend that Tottenham aren't going to take up the option to take him on again next season. I think many Spurs fans are delighted with that. So I would hope now you just see him sort of isolated from the squad. The way I see it is we owe him nothing. We don't have to give him game time between now and the end of the season. At the end of the day, he's had his opportunities. He hasn't took them. Postecoglou's also called him out after the Rangers game about his commitment and stuff like that. So for me, he should be isolated now. In fact, just tell him to go on holiday now and leave Mikey Moore in and around the camp and in and around the bench and let him play. But also now with Kulusevski, because with all the players coming back, there is going to be at least one player that misses out on the match day squad with all the players we've got available now, which is mad that we're in this time. But I do think, now with Kulusevski's injury, it should mean that Mikey Moore should get minutes off the bench. Let's not forget, Mikey Moore can play through the middle, by the way. He's not
you and I know that, Dave. Yeah. The problem is, right, look, we're talking about a manager, right? I mean, the amount of under 21 and 18 games I went to last season, I get excited that Jamie Donnelly's finally going to get a game. And I tune in, where's he playing? He's playing at left back.
I know.
So, I've never been, and the people that when I haven't been to the under 18s and under 21 games, guys, did you see Ange there? No. Did you see Ange there? No. Have I seen Ange there? No. Right? Listen, maybe he watches it on Spurs Play and I'm doing him a disservice, right? But as an encouragement, isn't it nice to see the manager of the team you aspire to play for coming to watch a game now and again? I don't know. But
do you know what? Jonny, I was watching the Jurgen Klopp documentary that's been released on Amazon Prime, about his time at Liverpool. And that's one thing he done. He turned up at the academy. He watched them at Melwood. And, gave the likes of Trent and that hope that, his eyes were on them and that he was going to bring them through. And look, maybe it's hard to argue this season, with the amount of games that we've had to play in quick succession, the fact that we've barely been able to train and work on things in training. It's hard to argue that there's time for him to go this season. But I definitely think last season, through the injury crisis, that's something he could have handled better. And there's a couple more things I picked up off it, even Jurgen Klopp with the injury crisis, the way he handled the press maybe compared to Postecoglou. There's a number of things I picked up off that actually, but that was the biggest one for me, is that he went in there and he gave that academy hope. He basically said to people, if you're good enough, you're going to get your opportunity. And the big thing that he said for me was the step up. It's not about talent. They all have the talent. Majority of them have the talent. It's actually the understanding of the game. And for me, look, I think the understanding of Postecoglou's tactics are easy enough. To be honest, I don't think they're overcomplicated. But I think that's where Postecoglou has let himself down, where maybe someone like Jamie Donnelly didn't need to be out on loan this season. He could have added something to this team. Jonny, finish off what you were saying there, and then we'll get Kate and Sam's quick thoughts, and we'll move on.
I was just going to say, look, I looked at his face at the Ipswich game, the final whistle. No, the body language is all wrong. You know, he's deleted his goal he scored, his debut goal off of his Instagram account. Then he deletes his ex account. And then after the Man City game where he's left out, he deletes more. To me, you know, I'm surmising here, something's not right. Something's not right. Whether, you know, some people will say, you know, who does he think he is? He's a 17-year-old kid, right? You've got no divine right to play. I get all that. But come on, right? I've got no interest in Timo Werner starting in a team for us. The league, the Premier League for me is finished. It's over. I have no interest in it. There's only one thing, and one thing counts for all of us now to turn this season around, and that's winning the Europa League. That's it. There's nothing else. You win the Europa League, you're in the Champions League, you can forget the season, because moving forward, we'll have the money, we can attract the players, we can keep the players. You get knocked out, you finish, and you don't win this trophy, right? Next season is back to 40-odd games. The kid's not getting a chance, right? And kids will know they're not going to get a chance, and they'll want to leave, right? The likes of Romero, which most people think he's going to leave anyway, the ambition of the club is called into question. This is massive. And quite honestly, I don't care about Timo. He's been left out of the squad for the Europa League, which was the right thing. So as long as Mikey's there and he's given the chance, because he has something that some of the others don't seem to have. You know. No, anyway, we can see.
I agree. Well, look, we are going to get on and talk about the importance of the Europa League, you know, for Ange Postecoglou, but also Tottenham's future and us holding on to our best players. That is something that we're going to get into next. So I just want to give, you know, Kate or Sam an opportunity. I mean, perhaps did you get to watch that Jurgen Klopp documentary, maybe on what Jonny and I were saying there about, you know, does Ange Postecoglou, you know, should he have done more with some of them under 21s last year? And if, you know, if there was more focus on them, would we have had to have had the summer we did where we ended up bringing in more youngsters on top of them?
I haven't watched the documentary. I'm not going to lie. I've got no intention of watching the documentary because it only depresses me. Because it will bring back those memories of the Champions League final that I never want to relive ever again. But I think the way we treat the academy players goes back long before Postecoglou, and there's a real issue with how our academy players are treated, even when they come into the first team, like Tanganga. I mean, I still think we treated him abysmal. But giving the youngsters a chance and like buying in, you know, we're linked to that Tyler Diblin today, and I think buying in all these youngsters, what on earth must these academy players be thinking? That's all I've really got to say about it. There needs to be some sort of gap bridged, because other teams managed to bring through some absolute superstars, but Tottenham just never managed to, for whatever reason. There's something not right.
And Sam, have you a quick thought on that, my man?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it a little bit last week, but it's just I don't know. We saw last season that he was reluctant to play youth teamers, even with all the injuries that we had. And maybe you could argue that last season, you know, we were still fighting for Champions League, and we didn't have any other like cups or anything because we went out early, as we always do. But I don't know, the culture of youth in the club does definitely need to be, you know, addressed. It looked like under Paratici, you know, he was bringing in players for the youth team, not just young players for the first team. And they were trying to build up the sort of like factory of talent that was coming and could potentially either lead to, you know, transfer success or players coming into the first team. And, you know, I agree with Kate, you know, yes, I think Tanganga, his time had maybe passed for us. But, you know, he always, I felt, did a decent job when he came in, and they just kind of cast him aside. But, you know, there's a lot of times where I think there could be the use of youngsters. You know, even sometimes when I think about Ange, like he'd prefer to just have a half full bench rather than just have some of the youngsters on the bench. And maybe that means nothing in the grand scheme of things, because, you know, if he's not going to play them, then I guess what's the point? But it's like something for them, you know. They've been rewarded to sit on the bench and experience that first team crowd, maybe have a few people look at them thinking, oh, who's this young kid? Like a Casanova or something. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, I wonder if there hadn't been so many injuries, would we have seen the likes of some of the young players getting a look in other than the players that we've bought? Because I feel like my final point is that we focus more on the players that we've bought rather than the players that we've nurtured, and actually bleed white and blue for the club.
Well, I just wonder is that, I was reading an article today, you mentioned Paratici there just quickly, that apparently, Spurs aren't going to go down the direction of trying to bring him back in this summer, that Daniel Levy is happy with Johan Lang and Scott Munn. He doesn't want to, get rid of them and go back in the direction of Paratici again. And I just wonder is it because of the youngsters that we're buying and maybe how well some of them have done this year? And, that the fact that, they're going to take the focus again off the academy. I just wonder, it's hard to know what way Tottenham are going to go this summer, but it does look like, Paratici apparently wants to go back to Italy and work. I know there's been interest with AC Milan. And also there's been a couple of other Premier League clubs really interested in Paratici. I could tell you what, now, if that one goes down, that one is really going to piss me off and upset me if he joins another Premier League club, given what he has done for this football club. And you would argue a lot of the best players this season have been players that he recruited for this football club. So it makes no sense if you don't bring him back in. And it was him that gave the pathway to all them academy players. He spoke to them. He convinced them to sign on the dotted line along with Greta Steinson at the time. And it just looks like now that they're maybe being frozen out and not a part of the plan going forward, which I think is stupid from Tottenham Hotspur. And if they don't, then they do need to have an inquest, because I think it's quite frankly a crime. But anyway, that is a conversation that we sort of touched on a lot last week. So I do want to move on. But just to round up the Kulusevski talk, I know Paul Markey was very generous. Look, I would say it's going to be a huge test of Brennan Johnson now. I think playing Kulusevski through that middle, Johnson has benefited massively this season from Kulusevski playing in that position, with Kulusevski sliding him in a lot of the times. Now he's going to have to step up. He's going to have to mature. He's going to have to become a big boy now. No, you're not a little man or a little boy in a man's game now. You're going to have to man up now, and you're going to have to start bringing a lot more to the table. So I think it's going to be huge pressure on Brennan Johnson, because I do think with the loss of Kulusevski, if he doesn't bring something to the party, he's going to be highlighted a hell of a lot more coming out the back end of this season. So he is going to have to step up. Big up Paul Markey, and I really do appreciate the support. But guys, I do want to big up Paddy Villa, good to see you in. Christy as well, great to see you. Surf South, good to see you. Nitro 8 DJ as well. Because I do want to move into a bit on the upcoming game in the Europa League, the sort of importance of it. So basically, we all know that AZ Alkmaar is up next in the Europa League. With us, we're basically out of both domestic cup competitions. Like Johnny said, the Premier League is sort of irrelevant. We're not going to finish high enough to secure European football. So winning the Europa League is now our only chance for European competition next season. Now, before we get into off the back end of what it actually means for Ange Postecoglou, I actually want to talk about what it actually means for Tottenham Hotspur, because that's who we support at the end of the day, going into next season. So again, we'll start with you, Johnny. I mean, how important do you think it is for Spurs to secure European football when it comes to keeping our star players next season who might consider leaving if we don't secure European football next season? Because you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be bigger clubs that will come in and offer for them and has the lore of European football to offer them. So is that a huge concern for you next season? And maybe what players are we concerned about, Johnny? Because it's something that no one's really talking about, the implications that it could have on this football club, and it could actually set us back again.
Listen, to me, it's the be all and end all. How many years was it before we were last out of Europe? I don't want to go through another season where we had 41 games, the least amount, I think, for 16 years. And he was still moaning about the bloody injuries. Look, it's everything. You can go on about, Romero was leaving anyway and all that nonsense, but top clubs want to play in the top competitions. Yes, Chelsea weren't in Europe, and they still managed to attract big players while they were down as low as 15th in the league. There's a big difference. They had Clear Lake Capital who are willing to pay huge money, right? And top wages. We don't pay top wages. We don't pay top money. We don't pay top wages.
That's another huge factor.
We're willing to pay a transfer fee if we can amortize it over 4 or 5 years, no problem. But when it comes to the wage, we're not interested. And, this AZ Alkmaar game, Pascal Jansen's done a really good job at AZ this season, right? He's really changed the way they play, aggressive football, light possession, press. But, they have got good results at the beginning of the season against Roma and Galatasaray and the like. And they beat Ajax a couple of times. But let's be honest, they're missing their two main players. They've got Ibrahim Sadiq, who's the Ghanaian winger. And, what's his name?
Is Van Bommel back?
No, Ruben Van Bommel. He's
Brilliant
out.
player.
Yeah, Ruben Van Bommel, who was the one I said to look out for last time. He's also out. So their two main threats are out. You got Jonny Classy, who must be about 33, 34 by now. So the only one is the Troy Parrott, and let's hope he don't repeat, and keep scoring goals. But we should be knocking this lot out of sight. Okay, I don't think the issue now is. I think the big game is probably against Eintracht Frankfurt in the next round. But since they lost Mamouche to Man City, they've not been quite as effective. We have to win this tournament. This is what I don't understand. Rest the players. Put in a different team. We're not going down. So, if you're going to rest players in the league games. Because I don't care. I mean, listen, I go to the games every week. I don't want to sit there and lose. But if you said to me, Jonny, what you can do, we're not going to take the league game seriously. We're obviously going to try and win, but we're not going to put out our full-strength team every week because our focus is the be-all and end-all of winning the Europa League.
Well, and sort of gave off that impression with his team selection for the Man City game, right? By resting the likes of Jed Spence on Kulusevski. He sort of gave off that impression that his eggs are in the Europa League basket, right?
Yeah, but what was Ipswich? We've done this before. He rested all the players in the Galatasaray game, wasn't it? And then we went and played Ipswich and lost. I mean, listen, I haven't got a clue. Listen, all I know is that this manager system, for me, right, and I know I'm not the majority, it didn't work, it doesn't work, and ultimately it never will work because he has not reinvented the wheel. Right? In 140 years of football, he hasn't suddenly come up with a system that no one else knows about that's suddenly going to revolutionize football. I don't believe it can, because I believe what it does is it exposes players. When I looked at, I'll give you an example before I rattle on too much, give everyone else a chance, was Jed Spence, when he came across and played right back in the game, he was against Ipswich. In those first 15 minutes, he was so far out of position that poor old Archie Gray was being hammered by Delap, and they could have scored 2 or 3 goals. And I realised there and then, it weren't about Porro, it's about the system, because the system demands that he's that far up the pitch and he's that inverted that it leaves the players exposed. And I just don't think it's sustainable. But over how many games? 6 games, is it? We got to win. Hang on, 2, 4, 6, 7 games. 7 games. Over 7 games is probably sustainable and achievable. So I'm gonna stick with the belief that somehow, some way, that we can do it.
No, look, fair enough. And just, I know International Observer is saying there, about how can the Premier League be irrelevant. I think it's irrelevant in terms of the outcome of Tottenham's season. It doesn't really matter
That's
if we
what
finish,
we mean.
Barely inside the top 10 or just inside the second bottom half of the table. We don't get it. The only difference is a small bit of monetary gain, but it's minuscule in the grand scheme of things. Not having European football next season is going to hamper our transfer budget. It's going to hamper our ambition in terms of in the market. It's going to hamper our ambition in terms of trying to keep our best players here and building around them. It's going to have so much implications on Tottenham Hotspur. So it's absolutely huge that we do win this Europa League. And I think there's a recognition from Postecoglou, like I said, International Observer. Everyone said you got to play Jed Spence against Man City, especially up against Stoke. I said it in my predicted lineup. I said, I think he's going to go with Porro. I gave the reasons why. But I did say, him up against Stoke was going to be an absolute nightmare, and it was a nightmare on the evening. It probably cost us the game in the end, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
I would also argue, not playing Son. Look, Udebur was really good on the night, but your captain, your best player, and then Kulusevski, now you could put the Kulusevski one down to now he's injured. But I think that sort of signals that the Europa League plays a lot more importance than the league games now. And that's the sort of signal you give off when you make them decisions. And it baffled a lot of fans because you still got 8 days between the Man City game and this game. So by all and large, Tottenham's eggs are in the one basket. We have to try and get European football here next season. If not, we are going to sort of set ourselves backwards. I mean, down to UK, before we get on to the implications, for Postecoglou, Romero, Van de Ven, and Dom Solanke have all been pictured back in training, and Postecoglou has always said this is the game that they were targeting for these guys to return. The big question is, I suppose, we don't really know tomorrow, but if they are all fit to return, does he throw all of them, in from the start, or does he, sort of integrate them back in slowly? Because some would argue we need Solanke straight back up front. Matisse Tel hasn't produced. We signed him to make an impact. He hasn't done that so far. And look, Danzo has been absolutely brilliant, but many would argue, Romero and Van de Ven are our best centre-back partnership. But to caveat that, he threw them straight back in against Chelsea, and both of them got injured again at the same time. We're out, for a large part of this season because of it. So what do you think Postecoglou should do tomorrow with a lot of these players returning? Or against AZ Alkmaar on Thursday, sorry.
I don't think he should just chuck straight away Van de Ven and Romero in because of what happened at Chelsea. I don't even see both of them starting on the bench out of those two. I think it'd be quite harsh to take Danso straight out. I'm not going to lie. I don't think he's really put foot wrong, regardless of people saying that they're our best centre-back pairing. I still think if you just take Danso out, it's really harsh on him because I think he's been really good and impressive. Solanke, I think, probably starts on the bench, but I think he'll get some minutes. But he's got to be so careful because it's one thing coming back from injuries, but it's something else being match fit. And I think the fact that he threw him in early last time and we ended up losing them for longer is going to be playing on his mind, and it'll be playing on the fans' mind because he got so much stick for that, and rightly so. So I'm not sure I don't think he starts at any of the three. But you never know with Ange. Romero probably won't want to play because he'll want to make sure he's, fit and ready for the international break because we know we can't possibly miss one of them. And
what's your thoughts just quickly on Romero being called up on the international break? I mean, look, it is worth noting that Spurs weren't blindsided. They were expecting it. Apparently, they've been in communication with Argentina, but surely it won't sit well with Tottenham fans if he doesn't come back in and play for us before he goes away for Argentina.
No, I think my opinion on Romero, I think his head's been turned for a long time. I don't really care what he does. If you want to know the truth, I hope he goes in the summer. I don't like his attitude. I don't think he's fully committed to the project, whether it's with Ange, and it may be because of Ange, I don't know. But the fact that Levy hasn't sacked Ange, Postecoglou says to me that this is his guy at the moment. I personally think, regardless of what happens in Europe, Ange is going to be kept. And I don't think Romero wants to play for Ange Postecoglou and will leave. So I just knew, everyone knew this was going to happen. He'd get called up and he'd be fit all of a sudden to go and play for, and he'd play marvellous as well. We all know he'd play out of his boots for his country, much like Lo Celso. Must be something to do with Argentinian players. But yeah, as far as the injuries coming back, I think Solanke's a key one. I hope we get to see some minutes from him because I think we've really missed him. And we may get to see a little bit of Romero or Van de Ven. I just don't know. It depends what Ange thinks, whether they're ready or not.
Do you know what? I agree with you. I think Danzo has done enough to earn his place. And I think, when he went, I seen him play left-sided centre-back against Ipswich. And I just wonder, is that, with Romero coming back and maybe he's maybe ahead of Van de Ven in terms of coming back, and that Romero's going to slot in at right-sided centre-back with Van de Ven maybe being eased back in. He might come on some way in the second half. I just wonder, is that something we're going to see? It'd be interesting to see what he does with Dominic Solanke. Does he throw him straight back in there? Because the striker role is one that is very demanding, especially out of possession. You've got to run your nuts off. You've got to be super fit. You've got to go and press that ball. And I don't think that's something that Tellers really took on. You know, when I look at the press against Man City, for instance, I think it was very half-hearted. I don't think he fully believed in it. But, you know, you look at Solanke or even Richarlison, they run their nuts off. You know, they go and trace everything down like it's the last action of the game. And you know what it does? It makes the team end up playing long ball. We recycle it, or play themselves into danger. We recycle it and go back at them. And I just think, do you throw Solanke straight back in there knowing that that's what you demand? I'm not quite so sure. It'd be an interesting decision, but we won't know until tomorrow, till the pre-match press conference comes out, you know, how fit and available these guys are. So it'd be interesting to see. But look, Sam, on to you. I mean, let's just kick it off. A lot of fans have sort of, that I've been speaking to, you know, of late, have said that basically this is a defining moment, you know, for Postecoglou's tenure. He has to go and win the Europa League. You know, so I want to know, is Postecoglou's fate at Tottenham tied to Spurs winning the Europa League? Because Jamie O'Hara also came out and said something similar, that this AZ Alkmaar is the biggest game of Postecoglou's sort of Tottenham career. I mean, do you agree with that? Or do you think, you know, winning the Europa League shouldn't be tied to Postecoglou's career? Is that harsh?
I'll be honest, Dave. I think I don't know jack shit, basically, because I know people will say injuries, and you know I'm more than happy to accept that. But based on the last 10 months, I would have thought he would have been sacked. You know, it fits with the narrative of we only really give managers 18 months anyway. But, you know, there's been many times where I genuinely thought, you know, Everton at halftime, I thought, you know, we're gonna get like a Martin Yol or whoever it was that got sacked at halftime. And there's been many games where I've thought, you know, the Leicester one specifically, that's him done, you know. But they haven't sacked him. They've stuck with him by hook or by crook, whatever the reason is. Whether it's because, you know, maybe you subscribe to the fact that you think that Levy's keeping Ange in the job because it deflects from him. Or, you know, maybe he's finally decided to back a manager. In my opinion, he's backing the wrong manager out of the ones that we've had. You know, am I happy that he is backing a manager? Yes. Am I happy that it's Ange? Time will tell. No pun intended. I don't know. If you'd asked me this a few months ago, where, you know, if he had gone out of the Carabao, the FA Cup, and the Europa League, would he still be in the job come the start of next season? I'd have told you, you know, if you think that he will be, you're insane. But now I'm like, you know, I hear a few people in the podcast scene saying that, you know, they don't think he will get sacked. And the more and more that I reflect on it, I'm kind of in the same boat. You know, I'm not necessarily happy about that. If I'm thinking hypothetically about if he goes out, you know, I'm always going to back the manager. I'm always going to back the team. You know, and I will be going to the game next Thursday. And I have, other than the Man City game, I've only seen wins, guys. But
so, what are the reasons then that you think he will be here next season? Just quickly, Sam.
Honestly, Dave, I genuinely I don't know.
No one else wants the job.
Yeah, to be honest, Johnny, I think that is genuinely the main thing. I mean, the last two you know, manager searches took months, right? We exhausted like every possible candidate, and all we kept seeing was, you know, Arne Slot's decided he's going to stay and sign a new contract at Feyenoord, and I personally think that, to be honest, was because Liverpool had told him, you know, you're on the list for you know, replacing Klopp. But you know, there was other managers. Ruben Amorim didn't want to come. I can't think of all the managers we were linked to, but there was a whole host of managers. You know, we can all agree that Postecoglou was not the first choice manager, especially in the summer. And, you know, I definitely do think it plays into, is anyone going to want to come? I personally, you know, I fall on the side of, there'll be managers out there that will look at the squad that we've got, and in an arrogant sense, and, you know, you have to be arrogant in sport, I think, or have a level of arrogance.
Self-belief.
I think they'll look at it and think, I could be getting a better tune out of these players, you know. And maybe I'm delusional for, you know, looking at someone like Iraola. You know, some people seem to agree, some people don't. It's kind of a preference. I don't really watch enough football outside of the Premier League to consistently see teams play to tell you, oh, I really like the look of that guy and the way that he gets teams playing. But, you know, it's interesting. I think that we really, really do need to see just general improvement everywhere. And I think that if the players do come back and we can sustain the majority of the squad without getting serious injuries, and things don't improve, then I think he will go. But if things kind of, you know, we finish the season stronger, then I think that the pressure on Ange outside the club will, you know, well, outside the interior of the club. So I'm talking about like the fans. I think that will dissipate. And I don't know if he needs to win the Europa League, but I think he needs to get, you know, semi-final minimum. Otherwise, in my mind, I would want him gone, because you know, in the 15 or so years that I've been watching Spurs, or that I've been sentient enough to understand Spurs, which I still don't, maybe. I've not seen it ever this bad, and, you know, I've seen some real shit. I wanted to talk Dave on Romero, if I'm allowed.
Yeah, go on. Just quickly, Sam.
Yeah, no worries. I just think that I saw some stats about it, and it was like he'd missed 66 games out of a possible 187 or something. You know, so he's missed roughly a third of games. Now, I don't know if I feel as strongly as sort of maybe Kate came across in wanting him to go. Maybe I've misunderstood that, Kate, so I apologize if I have.
No, you're right.
I think I fall in the middle of you know, you and Jonny, Dave, and then Kate, because you guys are advocating for, you know, the club should have the ambition to keep the best players around, and I 100% understand that. But I'm looking at it, and I use the cliche, you know, availability is the best ability, and as good as Romero is, if we can go and get, you know, 70+ million for him, I think that it's something that we should really consider taking.
What do you think?
I think that saying in a squad like Man City or Liverpool is a good saying. Availability is the best availability, and especially, but not on a squad like Tottenham Hotspur, where you do rely on your best players. I think, you know, regardless at Tottenham Hotspur, it's like, we really want to build. You've got to keep your best players. If we've got adequate backups that can step in and they're producing in his absence through injury, then fair enough, I can get with that. But until then, for me, it's a big no-no. You let him go. What are we doing here at Tottenham Hotspur?
I mean, it's madness. It's madness, right? Look, the fact is, when we signed him from Atalanta, right, he had a muscle condition. Spurs knew about it, right, and were told they had to manage it. They managed it. Argentina's managed it, right? The fact of the matter is, Italian Defender of the Year, right? 2-time Copa America winner, World Cup winner, right? Team of the tournament winner. The Copa America, team of the tournament, Copa America, team of the tournament in the World Cup, right? You don't win those accolades for being toilet, right? We paid 50 million for him, more or less. The problem is here, right? He's just had another kid. It's about the ambition of the club. We are sitting there. We are marching up and down the bloody road because we're not happy about the ambitions of this club. So why should you think for 1 minute, why should you chastise a player for having the same bloody beliefs? And let's be honest, the other thing I just want to put to bed, right? I saw it in the chat and it's absolutely spot on. If you go to Real Madrid and you ask the Brazilians, Vinicius Jr. and all the rest of it, what is it? More important for you to play for Real Madrid or Brazil, and they'll tell you Brazil, right? It's a different culture. Playing for your national team is the biggest honor in South America. It's not in this country. Get over it. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Spurs, I understand the how it looks, because it does look shit. But Spurs have given him permission to go. Why have they given him permission? Is it to appease him, to keep him? Or do they know that he's 100% going to be fit and ready to play in the next 2 games? We don't know. Time will tell, and we'll soon see it. It's 2 big games they've got in the World Cup. So let's see.
I'll also add to it, by keeping Romero, I think one thing people forget is how great he is playing out from the back. He's able to hit Madison in over the top. Something only Pedro Porro can do. But Pedro Porro is defensively weak. Having Romero on that back line actually allows you to drop Pedro Porro and bring in Jed Spence at right back. Also, it's about building a squad. I'm no doubt there's going to be conversations. Should we cash in on Pedro Porro this summer, which is a big no-no for me? It's about building your squad. We should be talking about, should we cash in on Radu Dragusin, who had a run of 20-odd, 30-odd games this season and was absolutely shit in possession and out of possession. They're the players that we should be talking about selling, not someone like Cristian Romero. If Real Madrid come in with 200 million, I couldn't give a fuck. Don't sell him. You keep him here. If you have ambitions of winning trophies, which is what Tottenham fans want, which is what Tottenham fans are going mad about, you don't sell your best players. I'm baffled. Surely we've learned a lesson from the Harry Kane departure, no? Everyone's sitting here moaning about the forward line, how shit we are, how
I don't think that.
Surely we've learned a lesson.
I think that's a disservice to Kane, though. Like, I get the point you're making, but Kane is the reason why we weren't finishing where we are now for basically the entirety of my Spurs watching while he was there. I think my point isn't necessarily like Romero's, not as good to keep him around just for the sake of it. Like I fully understand the point, and to Jonny's point about South Americans playing for love playing for their country more. Like I 100% get that, but my concern is when he throws in a ridiculous challenge against Aston Villa and like breaks his toe or something, and then the next week he goes and plays for Argentina and gets injured for a further month. It's like, come on, bro. Like I get that this is it's a big thing for you to play for your country, and I've got nothing against that. I feel like I personally would be, if I was a young player in world football, I'd be ecstatic to get out and play for England. It's just, for me, there's a level of like neglect for your own personal well-being that sees these stats of missing 66 games of 185 or whatever it is,
That's what happens when you
for me,
overplay
it's like,
players, Sam. When you're relying on players,
I get that, Dave.
And you're overplaying them. That's what happens.
I 100% get that, Dave, and we've discussed, since I've come on to the podcast, like our squad depth has just not been good enough, and every time we're given the opportunity to go out and push the boat out, we end up waiting the entirety of January and bring in Kevin Danso, who, let's be honest, if he'd been brought in at the start of the window, we may have actually seen some decent results. But instead, we leave everything to the last minute, and we over rely on these players. And as you said, like there is an over reliance on our good players. With Romero, like, look, I love Romero, but again, his availability for us has been terrible, in my opinion. And if he's going to miss, a third of the season every season that he's been with us, then you do need to start having a contingency plan. And for me, if big money is coming in, then I would listen to it. Not necessarily sell it, but I would definitely entertain it.
I don't disagree with that in terms of, same with Bentancur, right? Give them another season, but should Tottenham be building a contingency plan going forward next season? Yes. But in terms of a lot of the injuries that we do suffer, especially to our good players, look, like I said, there's always going to be an element of a manager relying on his best players. But when the golf in quality is so low, below them, it makes the manager's job, even easier. He's going to take that risk all day. If you give him adequate players, like I would argue now, you've got Danzo, if there's a game coming up where Romero is on the red zone that they like to talk about and all this shit these days, then you take him out, you bring in Danzo, and I think that makes the manager's job a lot easier to be able to trust someone like Danzo and be able to rotate him. But when the positions are so when the drop off in quality is so far in between, the managers are always going to play them through these, and that's Tottenham's biggest problem. You're not building a squad, so therefore you're playing your players week in, week out, every 3 days, and they're going to suffer injuries doing it. And we have to learn that lesson. It's something I've been banging on about since I've started this channel. A squad in modern day football is so important. You know, even in the summers we get sucked into it. We sign a player, he's going to be a great squad player. I'm sorry, but he's not. You know, you need players. It's not about playing squad players. It's about bringing in competition. That's how you create your squad.
No backup, Dave. No backup.
That's what we exactly. No backup. It's about bringing in competition. You know, you want to bring in a player and go, right, hunt him down, chase him down for his position. That way you'll get more consistent performances on the pitch. That way it's easier for managers to make rotational changes and for us to be able to manage 4 competitions competently. We have to get to that point. Jonny, I know you have to go, my man, but I do want to come to you and just get your thoughts on the Europa League and the importance for Ange Postecoglou before we let you plug yourself and leave. I've heard many Spurs fans say if he doesn't win the Europa League, he has to go. Personally, I find that a little bit harsh. You're asking him to be Tottenham's most successful manager since, 84, since we beat Anderlecht, to a large degree. So where are you at with Ange Postecoglou? If he was to stay next season, what keeps him in the job for you?
Look, guys, this isn't a blip. Okay, this isn't just something we're just going for a bit of an injury crisis. No, right? Just take the time and look at our record since Chelsea at home in October 2023. Was it November 2023? Just look at our form since then, guys. Come on. You know, you're kidding yourself. You've got your head in the ground like an ostrich, right? This isn't about what's happening now. It's been going on for months. Listen, I fell victim to it myself. A year ago, last season, in January, I was saying, wait till the players come back. You know, you'll see, telling all my Arsenal mates and my Chelsea mates, wait. Yeah, I made myself look like an idiot, right? They all came back and we were still crap. We still lost 7 games. I mean, it was at one stage we'd won 9 games in 9 months. I mean, come on, right? We've got better managers with better pedigrees who have got better results.
Would you say someone like Iriola, Jonny? Because, would Iriola be one of them names that maybe you're talking about, in terms of... Because ideally, look, next question then is he, if Bournemouth do qualify for Europe, he's going to walk away?
Well, listen, look, you pay your money, they'll walk, right? It's about the money at the end of the day and the project, he was signed for a project for Bournemouth. They train in a park. They get changed in a porter cabin. They play in front of 11,000 fans. They sold their best player to us, right? I know which team I'd rather be watching now who's having a better season, right? So you can make of it what you want. And they've got the same amount of injuries. They bought 2 strikers. Both of them have been injured. Go and have a look at their injury crisis. Go and look at their story. He doesn't hear it. You don't hear it. Just gets on with it. And my point here is that, look, for me, Iriola gives me Poch vibes to a certain extent. The way he changes his systems up, the way he talks about the game. I like how he talks about the game. I like how he talks tactically. And for me, he'd be the one. And anyone who knows me knows full well that long before Slot was ever mentioned for Spurs, I flagged him as being my number 1. Gallardo was my number 2 and Amorim was my number 3. None of those are ever going to come to Spurs now. So for me, it's Iriola. Pochettino's not coming back because he's at America.
Definitely not.
And, look, I don't expect to go out and win every game. What I don't expect is to watch, eat, sleep, repeat. The sign of madness is to keep doing the same thing over and over again and watching the same thing over and over again. And that's what I feel like I'm watching with this team. And yes, of course, injuries have affected them, right? But they affect a lot of teams, right? It's how you navigate your way around the situation. Playing the same system with players that aren't equipped to play the system is utter madness, which is what Amorim's finding out. But Amorim's got a complete free run because he said, I'm going to be playing free at the back from here on in, and I need to see who can play it. And if you can't play it, you'll be gone. It's as simple as that. And Ange now, he's in his second season, well into his second season, and I'm not seeing, tell me all of the players that have progressed under this manager. I'm not seeing a lot of them personally. You know, Kulu, I always felt would be a better player in the middle of the park. He said so himself the day he arrived. So, you know, I hope to be proved wrong. Just to say, I'd love to be coming on here, Dave, in May, and Ange is lifting the trophy, and I have to come on here and say, you know what, I got it wrong, and I was wrong about him. I'd love to be in that position to be saying that. I personally don't think so, but I would love to be it. And just to say, before I go, guys, Katie and Sam, thank you. Nice to be streaming with you. I'm sure it's short and sweet. Go on, Dave. What were you going to say? Sorry, mate.
No, I just wanted to push back a little. Just one more, maybe push back little question for you, Johnny. Are we underplaying the extent of the injury crisis and the effect that it has on a club like Tottenham Hotspur? Because look, I get what you're saying, that, you know, you've got other managers, like you look at Iraola, look at the, you know, what he's made out of the situation at Bournemouth and stuff like that. But, you know, you go to the injury crisis, you look at the extent that it affected Jurgen Klopp last season and the derailment of sort of Liverpool's campaign, who you would argue are a lot better equipped to be able to handle an injury crisis in terms of bringing players in, you know, to fill in positions than Tottenham Hotspur. You look at the effect that the injury crisis has had on Man City, it's absolutely massive. They are nowhere near the dominant team they have once been. You know, they've gone from title winners and cleaning up all across English football to fighting for Champions League qualification through the league.
Not joint 15th, though, are they, Dave? They're not joint 15th.
But then, Johnny, you know, you would argue their squad is a lot more equipped to be able to handle an injury crisis because the players that they're bringing in are of a much better quality than Ange Postecoglou. And that's why
I don't think this squad is bad, Dave. I don't think this squad is as bad. I do not think this squad is as bad as everyone is making out. I really don't. I really don't. I think a fully fit squad with a balanced method of play, this team is better than that. That's what I believe. And this whole he can't rotate nonsense, right? Listen, I went up to watch Jed Spence play, right, in Coventry, to play at right back, the position he was promised he'd play when he came back. And he played Archie Gray there. He said he can't play Spence. You know, he's not playing Reguilon. When you've got players and you say you can't play them and you can't rotate them, you can't then be complaining later on that, you know, you've got no players. You had players, but you didn't want to rotate them. It's as simple as that. It's like the boy who cried, you know, you can't cry after the horse is bloody bolted. There was warning signs there. We said it at the beginning of the season. I said, you know, if you don't sign another left back, you have to play Reguilon. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. Anyway, look, we could talk about this. We would examine the damage or the success at the end of the season. Let's all hope that we are sat here all celebrating and we're talking about Champions League football and the players we all want to sign, because I think this fan base absolutely 100% deserves better than we've been served up over this last 5 years. Whether or not you don't always get what you deserve. And, you know, I really hope we get what we all desire. I really do.
No, look, I think, you know, everyone wants that at the end of the day. Everyone wants a successful Tottenham Hotspur. I think, you know, we have progressed into this big six club, but we're always the bride, never the bridesmaid, right? You know, we're always the nearly men. We never seem to be able to get over the line. That's what we want. But guys, make sure you get over to Johnny's channel, Football Inc., here on YouTube, an adventure with Sean Butler. Make sure you get over there and smash the subscribe button. I'll also put in his YouTube link before we end off, or not his YouTube link, his Twitter link before we end off as well. Johnny, thank you very much, my man.
Thanks for tuning in. Hey, Dave, and
See you
Jack.
later, Johnny. Have a good one.
Take care. Love to everybody. Take care.
Johnny. Have a good one. Have a good one. Okay, look, you've heard what Johnny's had to say. You know, I think, you know, we take some things from the chat. People are saying, is Ange still in the job because Levy basically doesn't care? He's just trying to sell and get up. You know, you look at some of the rumors, they are saying that, ones that I read today, that potentially in the next couple of weeks we might hear something. Some people are just saying that, look, Ange Postecoglou is the worst manager Tottenham have ever had. But, you and Jim were behind Ange Postecoglou for a large part of this season. I know that sort of waned, over the last maybe month or two, if not maybe a small bit longer. But where are you at with Ange Postecoglou now? Does he have to win the Europa League in order for you to have faith for him going into next season? Because, again, I will stress, we are asking him to be one of Tottenham's most successful managers since the 80s, for him to keep his job here basically next season. Or is there good parts that you have seen that maybe does fill you with a little bit of confidence heading into next season, Kate?
Look, there's been glimpses of some good football at times, but I sort of said on the show today, and Jimbo didn't join me today because he's got man flu, but I sort of said, even if he wins the Europa League, I don't really want to see him managing Tottenham next season. And Jim was like, how can you say that? He'd be our most successful manager. And I get it. But this Premier League campaign, due to injuries or not, has been just horrendous. I mean, to dread watching us and just to see a team with no fight. Sometimes we look like we're 11 individuals that haven't got a clue what the other one's doing.
But it's not just Ange Postecoglou there, Kate, because, you go back to underneath Antonio Conte, that last season, he suffered a lot of injuries in around October, November, couldn't get our campaign back on track. Then we started off the season, I think the first 11 games on absolute fire. And again, some of the same things you're saying there happened towards the end of Postecoglou's tenure. You go to Jose Mourinho, very similar. At one point we looked like we were up there, I think, come December in terms of up there first in league or challenging for the league. And all of a sudden, a lot of injuries, we tailed off yet again. And Postecoglou sort of suffered, or Jose Mourinho sort of suffered the same fate. So is a lot of what you're saying there about Postecoglou, is that actually his fault, or is that inherent at the club because we don't build proper squads for these managers to work with?
I do think there is a huge mentality problem at the club, and I don't know how we solve that. I think a lot of it has come from Daniel Levy constantly pushing for top four and not really been that bothered about any silverware, just wants the money from the Champions League. So I think that there is an inherent problem with the mentality. However, I do look at our squad and think a better manager would be getting better results with the players that he's got. Even to the point of when we've had terrible injuries, he's not adapted to the players that we've got. He's just said, look, I'm really proud of the guys. We've got so many injuries, but they're playing the way I want them to play. Well, that's very admirable and well done, but it doesn't put 3 points on the board. And that, at the end of the day, is the most important thing. For us to be sitting down in 15th spot, no matter who the manager is totally unacceptable. And the fact that he hasn't been sacked for this is what makes me think that Daniel Levy's decided that this is his guy for for the duration of his contract. Look, for me personally, I think if he wins the Europa League or if he loses the Europa League, if he gets us to a semi-final or above, I think he keeps his job. But for me personally, I think even if we win it, I don't want to see him managing us next year because it's just been horrendous. It's been one of the worst seasons I could ever imagine. And I mean, I've supported the club for over 40 years, 41, 42 years, and it's as bad as it's ever been for me. So I don't want to see that again. And I get it. It's an outrageous statement because he won us a trophy, but I just don't think that he's the guy to take us forward because I can't say that I can see what he's doing, not consistently enough. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you see glimpses, but nothing consistent.
No, look, I certainly hear what you're saying. I sort of agree with you in that regard. But for me, where I'm still trying to sort of weigh it out in my mind, because I don't want to knee-jerk this decision because it's like a lot of what we're experiencing now, we've experienced before. The only difference between, this season and the season we sacked Conte and Jose Mourinho, so we sacked them, we brought someone else in, and we had an initial sort of manager bounce, which sort of saved the tail end of the season because we were able to pick up results. But I do think, it stands to testament that Postecoglou, the squad seems to still be on Postecoglou's side. When Jose Mourinho and Conte went through these sort of situations, they almost lost the squad. They started blaming the board and everything else. And Postecoglou hasn't done that. He sort of always took full responsibility. He hasn't really gone after the board. He hasn't gone after the transfers that we've made. And he certainly hasn't gone after the players. And it does seem like coming out of this situation, everybody internally is still with him compared to Conte and Jose Mourinho. And I think that stands largely in his favour to a degree. I think from the Spurs fan point, I think many people that are maybe hoping that this season can just be a little bit different, I think they're saying Postecoglou has to win the Europa League to keep his job next season. I think that a lot of the fan base, if he doesn't win it, I think will want to change in manager heading into next season. But internally, I don't think they're so quick to make that change personally. And I don't understand why I take into, everything that people are saying, all the stats that people are throwing at me. But again, the injury crisis is going to affect you at Tottenham more than it affects a Guardiola at Man City, more than it affects a Klopp at Liverpool, because they have better players to work with, big games, better players, better mentality, better squad depth, all to work with to try and navigate this crisis. Postecoglou doesn't have that at Tottenham. No manager really has that at Tottenham Hotspur. And for me, that's a huge issue. You look at Jose Mourinho and Conte. If we would have stuck by them, built them a proper squad, they would have delivered at Tottenham like they did everywhere else. But we don't do that. We sack them at the first sign of trouble. But look, I think the board have a very interesting decision on their hands, heading into next season, what they're going to do. Me personally, I'm a Spurs fan at the end of the day, regardless of my thoughts on the ownership, the direction of the football club. I'm a fucking Tottenham fan for the football. It's what got me into it. And I want them to finish the season as best as we can. I do want to climb up that table. I do want to go and win the Europa League. It doesn't matter if it keeps Ange Postecoglou in the job or not at the end of the season. I want Tottenham to try and save some face, save the embarrassment of this season, and try and have a strong end. And for once, head into a position in the summer where we're stable. We're off the back of a bit of success. Your best players are staying, your manager's staying, and then exactly, he can get rid of players that haven't produced last season, bring in players, and hopefully you see a better squad next season, because that's something we haven't had in a number of summer transfer windows, is a bit of stability heading into it. So for me, that's the most important thing. But I do think it's also important that the board come out and say what their plans are behind Postecoglou. I think they have to come out and make a statement if they're going to keep him, to quell down the noise over the summer, to attract players to this football club. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. At the end of the day, like I said, I'm a Tottenham fan, so I want to go and win things. I don't care about the outcome in terms of what it means for the manager or anybody else at the football club. I just want to win, and that's it at the end of the day. But guys, does anyone else want anything, want anything else to say or wrap up on before we finish up?
I just, you said, you asked Jonny and Kate, you said, obviously, in order for people to want Ange to stay, they're asking him to be the most successful manager ever. Well, no,
since the 80s. Since the 80s.
Of the modern era.
Since our last European success.
But I could easily argue that, if he doesn't win it, basically he needs to win it for himself. Otherwise, he's the worst manager.
Yeah, I understand.
In the end, in theory, it balances out. I know on paper it doesn't, because winning a trophy is the all important, But I do agree with Kate. I said to my dad the other day, and he laughed at me, although he also feels a similar way, I'm sure, that I would still want Postecoglou to go if things continue the same way, if he wins the trophy. It's I'll never stand here and say I prefer we lose the Europa League and Ange goes. As you say, Dave, I'm a Tottenham fan. I'd trade certain things on my body for a trophy, Just that sweet feeling of we got over the hurdle.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if I buy into the project, and I don't feel like I ever really have. And look, people might think that I'm insane or not, but by this point we're almost 2 years in, and I feel like if you can't if you can't see what you need to see, progress. 2 years. Yeah, 2 years is in my opinion enough to understand.
Sure.
That it, for me, it's not going to work. And again, I agree with Jonny. I would love to sit here in 4 months and say, hold my hands up, guys. I've got it wrong. Ange is the GOAT. Ange is the Messiah. But I just can't see it happening. I'd love it. And And, to quote Ronaldo, I think I deserve it. But, I just can't see it happening.
No, look, it's an extraordinary ask for us to go and win that Europa League. And I know, there's been a lot of talk about resting players for the Premier League and saving your strongest squad for Europa League. But for me, it just doesn't work out like that at the end of the season. The end of the season, to get over the line, it's all about momentum. It's what it's all about. You got to carry that in across multiple competitions just to pick your squad for the Europa League game and go and say, turn it on today. See, just football just doesn't work like that. So it's going to be a huge ask for us to be able to get over the line. My hope is that internally, between Postecoglou, between a lot of these players, there's been a lot of negative press about them, that Ange Postecoglou can flip that into a motivator, flip that into a positive for this squad going forward and say, everyone's doubted us. Only we can prove them wrong. As a collective, let's go and do that. And that's my hope, that if he can do that, it might just be enough to see us through to a final. And then anything can happen there. So, look, let's wait and see what happens. But, guys, please get over and subscribe to Sam. This is his Twitter link. Make sure, you get in there. He likes to be controversial on Twitter these days, putting out tweets there to get you guys to engage with him. So make sure you do that with him. Get across and check him out. Sam, really appreciate you beating the farmer protest on the way back. If there's any reports of dead pigs and pigeons and stuff like that, we know that you just went straight through them rather than going around them. But guys, please check out Sam. I'm also putting Kate's link in here as well. Kate, really appreciate you filling in for Jack today. Like I said, Jack out doing family duty, so really appreciate you stepping in. So guys, please get over and subscribe to Kate and Jimbo. Kate, what's coming up that people need to look out for?
Just the usual. We do shows every lunchtime at 12. We have got a new evening show coming, but we've just got to finalise when it's going to be. Hoping to have Mickey Hazard on again at the end of the season for his look back at the way that the game and the season has panned out. But yeah, it's nothing too heavy, just a bit of fun with me and Jimbo. We try and keep it as light as we can. And I've just we also like to we have quite a lot of Arsenal fans come in, and the banter is immense, let's just say. But I've just seen that Villa have just gone 2-1 up after an own goal from Club Brugge. So, but yeah, do come over. We're on the march to 2000. It seems like we've been on the march to 2000 for a long time. So we're trying.
Oh, look, I think to be quite frank, a lot of people have probably given up on Tottenham. My dad has said it to me, my uncle, my cousins, everybody, sort of, just look, point tuning in, Tottenham, its motivation for the season is done. I think, we're all going to feel the effects of that to a large degree. But look, they're two great people. They're a wonderful couple. Please get over, check them out, and smash that subscribe button. And then lastly, I do have a link for myself here, guys. I am going live on Big Up. I have put the link in here. Hopefully it's the correct link. If not, just type Big Up on Google. It'll bring you in, and then search the Irish Hotspur. I will be sitting down watching the Real Madrid and Atletico. I think it's Atletico Madrid game. So guys, make sure if you're sitting there, you're watching it on your own, or you're watching it eating pancakes on your own, because it is Pancake Tuesday. Make sure you come and join me and have the crack with me. It's a nice relaxed atmosphere. And if there's anything you've ever wanted to know about me a bit more, there's the place and the time to come and ask me. So make sure you get over, check that out. And if you want, feel free to join me on screen as well. So is that the right link? No, here it is. Here it is. So there it is. I hope that's the right one. Please click on that and bring yourself across. And then lastly, I do need to bring up the members' questions, which I'm going to be, I won't be too long on. Just bear with me. I just need to go and get them. Where are they? Flapping about now. See, this is why Jack, we miss Jack. He's so professional. He has everything ready, organized for all of you guys.
So annoying, because tonight you've got the Real Madrid derby and the PSV Arsenal game at exactly the same time. It's so frustrating.
I was going to do the PSV Arsenal game, but I can't stand them lot. So I just sort of said, look, I'll just do the Madrid game, at least I'll get to watch some decent football, because Arteta's too defensive for me. But look, I'm just going to take some of these questions quickly. We are, when the Spurs go marching in, big up, Paul. Good to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. I'll make these bigger so that people can actually see them. Can you see that? I think people can see that. No, let's go again. There we are. There we are. Paul says, if we do not win the Europa League, are we going to struggle to get players agreeing to come to us in the summer? I certainly think it lowers the caliber of pool that you're shopping in. Don't get me wrong. When we didn't have Champions League or European football, we were able to send the likes of Romero, players like that. But That was under Paratici. Johan Lang, for me, doesn't have the pulling ability of a dwarf trying to pull a truck, absolutely zero. So for me, I'm not convinced that we will be able to get players. So I do think it lowers the attraction of Tottenham Hotspur. And then the question in reverse, if we win it, get into Champions League next season, I think, look, you got Champions League football. It will help you attract top prospects. But the ambition has to be there from the chairman to go and shop in that market. And I just don't think it quite is. We've got Drop Kick Your Teacher. I have more questions, but wanted to keep it separate since the other one was long. If anyone else nervous at the idea of us going into a penalty shootout, Johnson and Basuma are players I want as far away as possible. How do we see this? Yeah, look, I mean, going into a penalty shootout certainly concerns me. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know how good our goalkeepers' selections are from penalty shootouts, and I would argue I don't think we've got a lot of players that would hold their bottle in a penalty shootout. I think you'll see a lot of balls go over the bar, wide, saved, under hit. I'm concerned about that. Also, how do we see the first leg going? Look, the way I see it is, I think we're Tottenham Hotspur. We do have a decent enough squad. I think when everyone's fit, if everyone's fit and we can turn it on, I think we should see AZ Alkmaar, easy enough over 2 legs. If we don't, I think there needs to be a serious questions asked of playing squad and management, to be quite frank. We turned it, I think Mikey Moore turned it on for 45 minutes in the game in October for the second half. Richarlison ended up scoring a penalty on the day. We end up beating them 1-0. So for me, I don't see any problems with AZ Alkmaar. So big yourself up. What's everyone's food plans? Well, it is Pancake Tuesday. So before we leave, we will ask the panel what they're having on the pancakes. Shem Thompson said, Jack and Dave, do you think if we don't win Europa League and don't finish in Europe spot, some of our players want to leave for European football and trophies? 100%. I think the likes of Romero will be ambitious enough to want to push for a move if the interest is there. I wonder, will someone come in and put in a large offer for someone like Mickey van de Ven? I think there's a couple of players there. Son, 1 year left on his contract. Will one of the clubs come in and maybe fancy trying to tempt him away? I think there's a few players that, we'll be doing well to keep hold of if we don't get European football. So assuming this is still happening, wouldn't make him a yes man if he's listening to whoever's telling him to put on the team sheet. He could easily go for piss off, mate, and go with starting lineup if he wants. Look, to a certain degree, yeah, it probably does make him a yes man, but I'd argue if you want to try and keep your job at Tottenham Hotspur, it has to be a large degree of you being a yes man. Look, one of our greatest ever managers at Tottenham, Pochettino, he was a yes man. That's how he's able to work alongside Daniel Levy for 5 years. He was okay with 3 transfer windows with no signings. Let's not forget that. So in order for you to have longevity at Tottenham in the dugout, there is an element that you have to work with the football club. It's just the nature of the business. If you don't want to work with the football club, you're going to lose your job. And that's not just at Tottenham. That's at all football clubs across the board. But guys, Kate, what are you and Jim having on your pancakes tonight?
We're really boring. We have lemon and sugar always.
Same as me. The old classic.
It's got to be. My son has Nutella, but lemon and sugar for us.
Yeah, my missus has Nutella. She likes the chocolate on it. I don't. Yeah. I'm like you, old school. Lemon and sugar. That's where I'm at. Sam, what are you having? You're probably having cream and cherries and fucking everything, are you?
You make me sound really interesting, but maybe I'm more boring than Kate. I'm not even having pancakes today.
Oh, what? That's a crime.
I am watching my waistline.
Yeah, but you still have one or two.
No, if I was, I'd be having Nutella and banana.
Okay.
Sam, on pancake day only, pancakes are 0 calories. It's a fact. Just saying. So you can have as many as you want.
There you are. Well, guys, you go off, enjoy your pancakes. Like I said, if you do want to follow me over to Big Up, caramel anything, Dave? No, not for me, Stevie. Not for me, my man. I'm not a big fan of caramel whatsoever. The only sort of caramel thing I like is a Galaxy caramel bar. Not that salted shite, but the normal Galaxy caramel. Really good. But guys, like I said, I'll put the links in there for Jonny, Sam, and Kate. Make sure you get across, subscribe to them. If you do want to watch the Madrid derby, make sure you get over. Join me on Big Up. Like I said, if you want to come on screen, you can. If not, just join me in the chat. But your presence really helps me out. So see you very, very soon. I'll be cooking off there in about 15 minutes. As always, come on, you Spurs. In the big hands we trust. Go and enjoy your pancakes.